Our guest today is Gavin Griffiths, better known as the blind sportsman. Despite losing his sight, Gavin has refused to let disability define him. From outdoor adventures to competitive sport, he continues to inspire with his determination, resilience, and passion for life. Stay tuned as we explore his remarkable journey and the vital role mental health has played along the way. Welcome to Conversations with Angie and Mike, a podcast brought to you by the charity Somewhere House Somerset. Each episode, we sit down with people from all walks of life, individuals and inspiring stories to share, those working in fascinating organisations and members of our local community groups who are making a difference. Every conversation explores their journey, their passions, and touches on the important role mental health has played along the way. Somewhere House Somerset is a small local charity based in Sedgemoor, offering confidential counselling and group support for anyone struggling with their mental health. We also run community initiatives such as coffee and chat sessions in Bridgewater, Wedmore and Burnham, talks to whoever wishes to listen, and a monthly drumming circle in Burnham. If you'd like to learn more, get involved as a fundraiser or a trustee or access support, please visit our website or email us at info@somewherehousesomerset.org. Now, let's dive into today's conversation.
Someone's doing work outside the house on the road, which is a nightmare.
That's
We're all
typical, isn't
normal.
it?
We have the same all the time
What's
here.
it
Well, thank you so much for joining,
Yeah.
Gavin. Would you like to just introduce yourself
That's right.
so everyone watching can kind of know who you are?
Yeah, my name's Gavin Griffiths. I'm 52. I live in Nottingham. I'm actually from Stockton-on-Tees near Middlesbrough. I'm currently I'm self-employed accessibility and audio engineer, and I currently play tennis, visually impaired tennis. I am totally blind. I'm currently in the Great Britain squad for my second stint, and I also play the drums.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
So how do you play tennis being visually impaired? We're going to go straight into this one because we're having a whole discussion about this the other night about can you play golf if you're visually impaired? And if you can play tennis, surely you can play golf. So I'm leaving it over to you now.
Well, the answer to that is you can play nearly. I don't know of many sports, if any, that visually impaired or blind people don't take part in. Over the years, I've played five-a-side football, cricket, and athletics, and now tennis for Great Britain. Tennis-wise, the courts are determined by your sight category. So the sight categories are B1 through to B4, and the higher the number means more sight you have. So B1 is where the category I'm in. This means totally blind or may have some light perception. However, to level the playing field, when you're playing in competitions and international tournaments, you are asked to wear either patches over your eyes, which are stuck on, and a shade, or just the shades. This is to level the playing field, basically, so the courts are varying sizes. So my court for the B1 court is 12.8 meters long by 6.1 meters wide. The ball is the same for all categories. It's slightly bigger than a normal tennis ball. It's made of a light foam. They're made in Japan. In the middle is a small, if you actually got the middle out of one of these balls, it looks like a plastic golf ball, basically, which has some ball bearings in, which makes the sound.
Right, okay.
As a B1, so the totally blind players are allowed up to 3 bounces before getting the ball back over the net. But you don't really want to do that because the lower the bounce, the more the net comes into play and the more work you've got to do to get it up and over and down. And the only other real change is that you have to ask your opponent, are you ready? Once they say yes, you have 5 seconds to say play and serve the ball to them. After that, all of the tennis laws are exactly the same. Foot faults, ins, outs, serving, all that kind of stuff is exactly the same. The one rule I suppose I forgot, which was that for a B1, the net is lowered to 83 centimetres in the centre. After that, it is all down to you and your ears and your racket, basically.
Wow. That is pretty amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, I can't play tennis and I have good eyesight. So yeah, my hat is off to you for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough game. I changed to it because I'd played mainly team sports all of my life, which is fantastic. But the one thing about tennis is you're on your own. I do play doubles, and we do play doubles, which is fantastic, and you learn a lot from playing both games or both forms of the game. But when you're out there on your own, the wins are as big as the losses. You know, the highs from the wins are all yours. The mistakes are yours. The wins all yours. The mistakes you have to learn from quickly, and it's as much 50% mental game as it is physical. And the one thing is, there's no one to hide behind. You know, you've got to do it all yourself. You're out there
Yeah.
on your own. You make the decision. If it goes wrong, you start again. You've got to find that inner self to bring out the strength.
Do, uh, where are you in when you say you're part of the British team? Where are you within that British team, and how do you guys get on? Is it mixed? Is it? I mean, obviously you're playing singles, but do you do mixed double? How does it work? And where are
Yeah,
you?
there's it is mixed. So there's men and women both play. We have singles and mixed doubles. I'm currently in the figures for GB. Anyway, I'm probably number 2 at the moment.
Wow.
A guy called Naka Risby is quite a bit younger than me, and he's top player. He's beaten me a lot. I've beaten him once this year. So it's a fight as well for being that number 1 spot. But we have currently 3 men and 3 women in the GB squad anyway that we trained last Sunday at Loughborough. The squad often takes part in international tournaments. Last year there was World Championships and so on. I wasn't there because of illness last year, but in 2023 we had the first one here in the UK in Birmingham. If I remember rightly, Naki won the singles and the doubles, I think, with his partner, myself and my partner, Yvette Priestley, who I play with regularly. We come home with a bronze in 2023 in Birmingham.
Wow. It's amazing.
And we also managed to win the championship here in the UK last year. And we actually went through the whole season last year with a record, which was that we didn't lose a single match.
Yeah. How does it feel?
Playing tennis or to win?
But both.
Both.
Tennis, I mean, I've learned a lot. I started properly playing in 2019. It's been around a lot longer than that, and the whole game was thought up by a Japanese guy. And I moved to it really because I wanted a new challenge. I'd done the team sports. I'd done all I could in cricket. I played cricket for 35 years and won all the cups with different teams across the UK. And I just wanted a new challenge, really. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see what heights I could get to. And yeah, it's the rush of winning. There's nothing like it, when you win. And the first time I did manage to beat the number 1 was something else. And, you can't help yourself but go off on a run around the court kind of thing. But then there's the lows when, you should have played better and the things you did wrong and you couldn't stop yourself doing it. And sometimes you beat yourself up over that. So, those highs are as much as the lows, but you've got to love the game, and that's the main thing. Is at the minute I'm still loving the game, losses or wins. I still love it completely, and it's every day is a new challenge. In the last 5 years, 6 years in tennis, I've come a long way with my coach Taz here in Nottingham. He hadn't coached a fully blind player before myself, and he took on the challenge. And has to mix the game with standard tennis because there's a lot of stuff and a lot of the way you play, the holding the racket, the kind of shots. You've got to bring those through into the visual impaired game, but there's also the rules have got to be taken into consideration and all the bounces, those kind of things. And because I can't see the ball, you've got to find ways of he had to find ways of showing me how to play the shots physically. So he had to come and handle show how to put my hands on the racket and show me the shape of the racket
Yeah,
going
yeah.
through the air, things like that, which he's improved. And the one thing he really improved was I am a really, really bad loser. I always have been, always will be. The difference is where before I used to get really angry and really cross, I now channel that into the game now. And I definitely have calmed down on the court. It's made me a much better player. And put the
And a
energy
better
into win.
person? And a better
Well,
person?
I hope so. So I'm still bad at losing, but now I find it much easier to go to the net and shake hands and then go away if I've lost and beat
Yeah.
myself up for less time and stuff. But yeah, it's a tough old game mentally, physically. It's 50-50, and you don't realize that until you're on the court. Even for a match of our matches, probably the bigger matches often last around an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And that you come off there, and as physically tired as you are, you don't realize how much mental energy's got into it and how much your body's doing for you, because you're listening all the time, and you've got to figure out where you are on the court, where the other player is, where's the ball, where do I get the ball back to? And that's all done through your ears,
Yeah.
rather than for yourself and for normally sighted people, everything you do 99% of the day is done through your eyes.
Well,
And I
it's
have to
it's
channel that into my ears.
it's funny because we do podcasts. When we do the podcast, Mike always says, "Oh, I'm absolutely exhausted," because he's sat and had to listen to if we do a podcast and recording day. Whereas I'm used to sitting and listening because that's what I do for a living. So it is that thing, it's different skills, isn't it? And it's a different skill set when you're doing that. And it's quite exhausting to have to gather all of that information and then still hit a ball and get it in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can relate it to be honest, is I do a radio show myself, and I've been a DJ for over 15 years now. And the one thing people don't understand, I do a 2-hour show, but it takes me 4 days to get that show ready, and people don't understand that. And it's
Yeah.
only when you've done it and come out the other end, and
Yeah.
that's what I equated to tennis. An hour-long match, you suddenly realize you feel like you've been running around for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So how the real professionals do it, I've just finished reading Andre Agassi's book, and the physical abuse they put themselves through to get to the top is unbelievable.
Ask a question. How old are you?
I'm 52.
You're not exactly a spring chicken running around a tennis court and
No,
being number
definitely
two
not.
in Britain, are you?
No, this is done, and this is why we're trying to do these, to try and come on and talk to people like yourselves and the media, um, along with guide dogs who have helped me get this out there. Because unfortunately, I'm between guide dogs at the moment. So my guide dog retired last October, but I'm waiting for a new one now. And he helped me as much do this because he was helping me get around to tournaments and also to do my work every day. At the minute, I'm using the stick. But the one thing that we're finding is that, unfortunately, in our sport at the minute, we are not getting the younger kids coming through. We've got some, but at the minute, probably our youngest player on the circuit is around about 22, 25.
Yeah.
And the GB squad as well is aging. That, I mean, they do fantastically. There's better than me on the circuit. There is, even though I'm number two. Some of the people out there are doing fantastically well. But it's just a shame because, unfortunately, in schools, vision impaired children don't get these chances. But there is actually uh, tennis centers out there who will be willing to help and find you the nearest coaches and stuff for this. I just wish and hope that people listen to this and come and try it and get out there and do it,
Yeah.
because it's hard. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it. And you will
Do
feel
you,
so much better.
but who pays for it all? Because some people will, that's one of the things that people will think about is how am I going to be able to afford that?
So it's like any other sport, isn't it? I suppose, in that, to begin with, if it's your hobby, then you're going to have to pay a little bit. There will be charges towards the courts and stuff, or the coaches. So, the tennis centres will charge minimum fees usually for disability sports and disability sessions. When you get into, or if you get into the big time, then yes, you will have to find some of the finances yourself, but also the Dan Maskell Tennis Trust, I think it is, are out there, and they help a lot of tennis players, wheelchair, visually impaired, deaf people, I think. And you can go to them every 3 years for a grant to help with your training and your equipment. So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is money out there, and also obviously you can find other funds out there. But obviously, if you're wanting to do a sport, and if you have the passion, then you're going to have to pocket some of that yourself. It's like anybody else in any sport, really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got horses and I know, and I compete. I don't compete anymore. I used to compete, but it was just like, yeah, I paid for the expenses. That was
Yeah, and
what went
it's
with it.
tennis isn't a cheap sport. I'm not,
No.
I won't beat about the bush. It isn't cheap. It takes a lot of my money, from my side of the household goes into it. But if you love it enough, you can't help it. You get
Yeah.
the bug. I mean, uh, the only thing that's going to stop me now is illness, or is age.
Yeah. So do you want to tell people your story as to how you became blind? What was your circumstances?
Yeah, I unfortunately was born with retinoblastoma, unknown to my parents until I was aged about one. Retinoblastoma is cancer of the retina. So they had to take my eyes away to make sure that I lived, basically.
Right.
So I've been blind from the age of 2 or just before. So I've known no different, and that makes it, oddly, it makes it easier for me as a visually impaired person, a totally blind person specifically, because I've never known any other way. So everything has always been done through my ears all my life. I was lucky in a way to be born in the 70s. So I was still went through the old school systems, which there was many boarding schools across the UK then for visually impaired children. And I originally went to a school in Newcastle, and I went away for 5 days a week. By the time I was 6, I was away at 5 days a week from home.
Wow.
Um, and then I moved on to secondary school in Worcester, which is now called New College Worcester. And there you would go away for usually a term, half a term at a time, so 6 weeks at a time you're away from home. Um, Offsetting that or time away from your family was that you were given, definitely if you took the chance anyway, you were given the best education and sports and other skills, because the schools were equipped for that, to give visually impaired children, certainly of those 70s, 80s, 90s era, the chance to compete with everybody else. So you were given all the skills to get out there and in the big world. So, we learned how to cook, we learned how to clean, iron, all that kind of stuff before you left the school. And if you went through secondary school, you probably leave at the age of 18, 19. Then off to university was the usual kind of way out, and
Oh.
onwards, hopefully, to a job. So I did both of those things. I didn't go to university. Well, I went to university, but I went to do business and finance, at the bereft of my teachers, because they wanted me to go and do English. And I loved English, but I didn't want to teach it. I thought I wanted business and finance so that it would help me through the rest of my life, really. So that's what I went and did. I went my own way. And luckily, at the same time, through all of those times, at Worcester, especially my secondary school, um, I was, I suppose I was not the top gifted, I suppose, at sport, but I could use, yeah, most sports I just picked up. Apart from swimming, I wasn't brilliant at swimming, but football and cricket, those kind of things just came naturally. And my mum and my brothers, when I was a kid, helped with that, because I started off with playing around the house with my mum, actually, with a table tennis bat and a ball we found in a chemist, which was actually a cat ball, but it was about the size of a tennis ball, and it had a bell in it. It was brilliant for knocking about in the
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
Um, and that's how I started, really. And then on to Worcester, I got the chance to play for the school very early on, because I was tall. Even by the age of 12, I was already 5'4". And so I was, I was tall for my age, and I got into the teams. Um, and I got the skills, really. I was given the skills by the great teachers that were there, to go on. And by 1990, I was representing Great Britain in uh, shot put, javelin, and discus, and came home with two golds and a bronze.
Wow.
And went on from there, really. Just being lucky in sport. And yeah, that's really where it came from. Carried on into the football, into the five-a-side and the England squad. Went to the first World Cup for visually impaired cricket in 1998 in Delhi, um, and did all those team sports. And then eventually tennis came along, and I heard about it probably in about 2016, 2017. And there wasn't really anything round about me. But then I got a session down in Nottingham Tennis Centre, and it was sort of a half setup, and it sort of gave me the bug, and I thought, well, why don't I go and try? So I went firstly down to London for my first tournament, and was completely hooked. Basically, I thought, this is for me. I've got to play. The rest of the time, I've played drums for a few bands. I play most of these days with a friend, or actually with my coach and another friend, in some open mics. Um, I also do a radio show on a Thursday on ARFM on the internet. I've been there about 5 or 6 years now, which is a rock station. The rest of the time, I I'm an accessibility consultant for people trying to get websites and or buildings and museums, exhibits accessible to disabled people, but for all people actually. And I do a bit of audio engineering on the side for myself and other people.
Right.
Wow.
Wow, you got a very full life. So do you have family? Are you married? Are you single? Are you divorced?
Yeah, I'm married to Mel. We've been married 13 years now. And actually, which is really cool in a way, is that I go to Wimbledon on the 8th of August. This is the third year running where we've been part of the Play Your Way to Wimbledon competition, and the
Yeah.
visually impaired tennis is in that now. I'm hoping I've been second twice, 2 years running. I want to try and get first, but I suspect I'll be up against Mr. Number One again. But on the same day, on the 8th of August, on the Friday, my wife Mel is actually doing a wing walk over Lincolnshire.
Oh
And
Wow.
she's
gosh.
doing it on behalf of guide dogs to raise money for them.
Ah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
she just loves. I think she's an adrenaline junkie. Basically, she's completely mad if you ask me. But yeah, so while I'm playing tennis, feet firmly on the ground, she'll be somewhere winging
Flying.
her way around Lincolnshire
Wow.
doing a wing walk.
That
So
sounds fantastic.
it does. Is your wife visually impaired at all?
Yeah, she's totally blind. She works for Guide Dog. She has a
Oh,
lovely
right.
black retriever shepherd called Elsa.
Oh.
Um, and yeah, she works for Guide Dogs. We live in Nottingham. Her family are in Bristol, and my family are all still up in Stockton-on-Tees.
Right.
Wow.
I used to have family in Stockton-on-Tees.
Great
I
place.
don't I
Well, it
don't know if
was.
I don't know if they still live there. I've got no idea. But I used to live up north. I had a Geordie accent. You still got a little bit in the background. I can hear it.
Definitely got an accent. Definitely not a Geordie accent. I'll forgive you for that one. Yeah, I mean, soon as I go north to see because both my brothers are up there, and my mum's still alive. Unfortunately, my dad died a year and a half ago, but
Oh,
all my
sucks.
family, the rest of my family, are all up there. And as soon as I go up there, everybody says, and especially Mel, she says, "Oh, your accent's straight back." It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
just
Oh,
can't help it,
I've got a friend like that who I didn't know that he was from Wales
right?
until one day I heard him on the phone to his mum, and it was like his accent had just suddenly all come back, and he was speaking this Welsh accent, and I was like, I said to him, "Oh, I didn't know that you had a bit of a Welsh accent." He goes, "I don't." I said, "You should record yourself when you're on the phone to your mum because your accent comes through really thick."
Yeah, that's
Um,
when I started to notice that. I think when I started doing the radio and
yeah.
listening back to shows or sending them in, and I soon realized that, I tried to do my best to not lose my accent, but just to speak clearly as best I can. But then there's odd words drop in. You think, oh my God, the Northeast accent's coming out there.
It is, isn't it? It's odd words. I get
Yeah,
told that sometimes that I get a
yeah.
bit of a Somerset accent
No,
when I say certain words.
you've got a Somerset
Mm.
accent.
I never
So
thought I did.
you do, honest. So guide dogs. I think it'd be a nice subject just to touch on that, please, a bit more. Is so you're in between. How do you know when to retire a guide dog?
There's no exact rule of thumb, but they usually work around 7 years. So you usually get a guide dog somewhere between 20 months to 22 months old, after they've gone through all their training, and the guide dogs will usually start to look at retiring a dog around about the age of 9. Um, Simply because that's 7 years of hard work, and these dogs, it's not nothing like a pet, where often they'll romp around the home or the garden, and then they'll get put in the car, they go for a walk, and then they come home. These dogs, they do all of that, but at the same time, the rest of the time they're pounding the pavement, and it's
Yeah.
concrete, and like us, their joints wear out and things like that. So, um, my dog Utah, he got arthritis in his front left leg, so he was retired just before or just after his 9th birthday. Um, so they look at that kind of thing, and those dogs do a lot of work every day, and they're expected to do and stay in the training. You keep part of that going, and it's obviously in them, inbred into them. So it's they're doing all things that dogs don't do, which is go after balls, sniff around, go after food, get distracted. All that is bred into them that they don't do. So they're trying not to do that all the time, and it's very unnatural for them. So they're on high alert a lot of the time, which is why we stress, and stress again. Please do not touch dogs when they're working, because they're already on high alert, and they're doing their very best not to do what dogs do. they're guiding someone, and the safety of that person and the dog can be, massively uh, interfered with if you interfere with the dog's
Yeah.
concentration and what it's trying to do. So, these dogs are well looked after. They're not pets. They're working dogs, just like a police dog or a rescue dog.
You
And they're doing that. They're on high alert all of the time, even at home when they're being pets. They're not a true pet in that kind of sense. They're still, although they're not guiding you anymore, because they come home, they take the harness off, take the lead off, and they go for a play. But they still watch you. They can't help but watch you because it's in them, bred into them to look after you
mm,
in a certain way.
of course, and you mentioned they're not pets, but I imagine they're still a really important companion. Is that fair to say?
Definitely, yeah. Everyone's different, everyone has their own story. I mean, I got my dog. I wanted one all my life, but I didn't want one until I really needed it. And I fortunately got a virus in about 2014, 15 Christmas in my. I just thought I had a cold, but unfortunately, it took away some of my hearing on the left hand side, certain areas. So, eventually, in 2017, 16, I decided to go for a guide dog, and yes, they're a working companion, a working dog, and they become, you become inseparable because you go most places, if not 99% of the places, because these dogs can go into a lot of areas where other dogs are never allowed. So you get used to having them by your side, and there's nothing like having that dog sometimes when you're unsure. um, and you work together to get out of the situation, and when you get out of that situation, you stop and give the dog a fuss, because it's as much as a relief to you and a relief to them that they've done their job properly, so you've got to tell them that. So even when they're being a pet, they're a very special pet. They're looked after they get the best food. They don't get fed treats off the table. They don't get any kind of rubbish. They're fed all the best stuff, and they're looked after in a very big way. It costs a lot to have these dogs. It used to be only 2 or 3 years ago, it was about £60,000 to put a dog through its working life. We're now
Wow,
talking £102,000.
wow,
So it's a lot of money invested in you and the dog to make that partnership work. And believe me, I've, like as I said to you before, I've been on podiums, I've stood there in front of crowds when I did the athletics, and there were emotional times, very hard times, and under stress, when you're playing for England and stuff. But there was nothing like the stress and the emotion I felt of going through training with a guide dog, to put my trust in this animal and work through that, and then go out on the road by yourself and think, can I do this? Can me and the dog do this? And after a year, it usually takes about a year to sort of bed down and get everything right. Suddenly you realize, wow, we're working together and we are doing this just like we did before, just by myself, but the dog's helping me get round things a little bit quicker, a little bit of a different way. Um, and it's tough, but it's well worth it. If you can get through that, there's nothing like it at all.
no, I bet that's amazing.
It does sound amazing. And so, what happens when they retire?
There's choices, basically. You're given the choice. So if you have the room and you can keep them as a pet.
Yeah,
Obviously, they no longer have the rights to go into all the areas a guide dog would, because they're no
yeah,
longer a guide dog as such. If you don't have room, like we wouldn't, or we don't, because my wife has a guide dog as well, and I'm having to get another one, then you can find friends or family who are willing to take them on.
yeah.
And mine went off to live in Ipswich. He now lives in the countryside, having the whale of a time,
Oh,
helping his new family hunt the hedgerows and do all that kind of stuff. Or there is also, if neither of those can work, there is a third, which is there's a huge list at Guide Dogs held of people who want ex-guide dogs, and I don't know exactly, but I believe it's years long of people waiting for those lovely dogs.
oh,
So, what's
brilliant.
the lead time for you to get a new guide dog?
I think currently, when I went back on the list in November last year, the current wait time here in the East Midlands, anyway, I think was roughly 18 months.
Oh
But
wow.
really, that's come down a lot because obviously COVID, like everything else, had major disruptions in the guide dog world because of the dogs that were in training, just about to come in training, just about to go out. All that had to stop dead even the breeding program. So those dogs didn't go to waste. They found new homes and new things for them to do. They find places to go like buddy dogs and things like that. But they had to start again almost in a way and start afresh. And now they've got those times right down. And again, you've got to run with these things. They are animals; they're not machines. So not every dog is going to make it through.
Of course.
So you've got to be patient with guide dogs, because they're putting the money in, and you will get one. You just got to wait, and because they've got to match the right dog to you, to your stride, to your lifestyle. So it's a science, and they do superbly well at bringing these dogs through. And Utah was my first dog, um, and I did have a wobble about getting a second one because there is unfortunately so much hassle these days with taxi refusals, people on trains not wanting your dog sitting next to them and stuff like that. And then I suddenly thought, actually, no, I'm not having the world to dictate to me what I can and can't do so that I can live a normal lifestyle. So I put myself back on the list.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right too. I remember listening to a guide dog talk by somebody from a guide dog. I think they were a guide dog trainer actually, and they did a talk, and I remember them talking about the sort of the rules around guide dogs, and yeah, you can't discriminate against a guide dog. A guide dog is allowed in, like you said, 99.9% of places,
Yeah.
and people can't discriminate against them, and it would be wrong to.
But
Yeah.
it's funny you say that though, because there is an element where I don't like going to a restaurant and there's a dog next to me that's begging at the table. But I also know I wouldn't hesitate if it was a therapy dog of some kind, if you see what I'm saying, because then they're trained not to beg at the table, if you see what I'm saying, and they're so well trained. I admire the people that do that work. It is quite incredible.
Yeah.
But some people have really badly behaved dogs and take them everywhere, and they get away with that. And then you've obviously experienced some discrimination, which seems absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ended. I mean, we've had a fair few cases over the years. Taxis are the real problem. Um, Luckily or unluckily now, we have to carry. I use the Meta glasses to take videos of every taxi journey we take now, just for proof, because we've had quite a few cases where the council or the taxi licensing have dealt with it and there hasn't been a problem. Unfortunately, usually, if the taxi drivers will not admit to what they've done, they lose their license, and that is it. They will never taxi drive again. That's the risk they take. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we did end up in court. Again, the taxi driver was completely in the wrong, lost his license for good. Um, and that's this is the case. It will happen, and you've got to be strong though to take it through to that kind of situation. You've got to have the right licensing authority that will help you do that. But it is unfortunate. It is still the case where there is a lot of ignorance in the law. Um, a lot of people, especially taxi drivers, hide behind the misdemeanor that they can say they have a medical exemption. You may well have that, but the only way that can come into play is that if you have, then you have to have a doctor's certificate. It has to be carried in the car at all times and has to be shown. Then they don't have to take a dog, but it has to be legal and above board. You can take a picture of that and go back to the company and so on and so forth. Other situations, shops, restaurants still try this on. And also the restaurants. The problem is at the moment, especially with restaurants and pubs, is that they will then direct, if they're a dog friendly venue, they will direct the guide dog owners to sit in the dog friendly spaces, and you don't have to. A guide dog can go into any part of that restaurant, any part of that pub. It does not have to
Yeah, yeah.
specifically go into the dog area. But this is where the law, it is there, but people are trying to use it, incorrectly. And that's the problem, ignorance and just trying to either not know the law, pretending they don't know the law. And we've just got to overcome that with, people like yourselves putting it out there, hopefully, and people listening. People will challenge it these days. And luckily, the tech is out there where we can videos these situations and then use it as evidence against people who are quite happy to break the law. So,
So
beware.
You were saying you had to wear special glasses, was that? Can you explain that?
Well, they're not special. They're out there now. They're the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. So I don't know whether you've come across these, but they've been around for about a year or so now, and they're getting better and better. It's a pair of Ray-Ban. I have Wayfarers, so the standard Wayfarer glasses, but they've got cameras in and mics, and you can record it, and they've got speakers in, um, and they're for everybody and anybody. But the app is accessible to people like myself using an iPhone or an Android, and you can hook up to those and use the video and photographs, and you can speak to them. So you can tell them to do things. So you can say, "Hey, Meta, do this, that, and the other," and it will do whatever you ask it to. So it's another kind of AI that like ChatGPT and Gemini, but it's built into the glasses, and you can make them work for you. So unfortunately, what we now do, because we have had not so many lately, I must admit, to be honest, but we have had too many taxi refusals. So now every journey, we record the start and end of that journey, because we get, first of all, we get the attempt at refusals, or, which we, the other thing we've had a couple of times now, where we've had what we thought was a fine, pleasant journey, no problem with the driver. They've asked if we wanted help, and the guide dogs have either gone in the footwells or in the boot, not obviously not a saloon, but into a hatchback
Yeah, yeah.
boot. But then we've found that the taxi drivers tried to slap cleaning fees and things on afterwards, even up to 5 days afterwards. So we've had to
Amazing!
take I take video of us getting the dog into the car and taking it out, and then showing the space where the dog was, to show that we haven't left a mess and stuff. So this is the kind of discrimination you're up against. So you, unfortunately, sadly, you have to go on the premise that everybody is going to uh, be be unkind and try and break the law,
That's
which is
so
sad way of
sad.
looking at it. Really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad, and that's just not fair.
No, and nine
The
times
fact,
out of 10, that video, take the video, within days I can scrub it and forget all about it, because most taxi drivers are absolutely superb. Unfortunately, it's the ones that aren't that get the press and get the people's backs up against taxi drivers. So
Yeah.
it certainly is a minority, but it's too big a minority. It's still happening far too much.
I mean, I ride horses on the road where I live. I live on a very busy road, and it's a 60-mile-an-hour road. My horses are trained, so they're very well behaved. They tolerate any traffic at all. But the law came in that you have to drive 10 miles an hour next to a horse. You shouldn't go any faster, and it's been brought in, and the amount of people that disrespect this, and
Hmm.
actually, I mean, I've had people drive at me on the horse and then scream abuse out of their window, and then, what, you've got no right to be on this road. And it's discrimination, isn't it? Whatever way you look at it, it's discrimination. I pay my taxes the same as everybody else. In fact, I probably pay more tax than most people, but actually, at the end of the day, I've got as much right to be there as anybody else, just like the guide dog has as
Yeah,
much right to be there as a human being, and they should be treated as a human being, really, because
yeah,
they are equally based with you, aren't they? That's what they are. They are your eyes and ears, really, for your life.
yeah. And it's discrimination and intolerance that comes down to it. Um, Believe me, I've throughout my life, I've been in taxis where quite a lot of humans are way, way more dirty and disgusting than any guide dog ever would be, because they're highly trained animals. They're highly groomed, highly looked after. These animals are trained to sit in the footwells or in a hatchback in the boot, out of the way, keep themselves to themselves. You wouldn't know they were there half the time. It just simply comes down to discrimination and intolerance, and it's far too prevalent still. But there is, unfortunately, that's what comes to light. It's the good people, and there is many, many, many more of those, unfortunately, who don't get the limelight, and they should, because you travel and you have no problems at all most of the time.
Yeah. Do you get discrimination in another way because you're blind or visually impaired? What's polite to say?
Well, I don't mind blind. I prefer blind personally, because I find, I mean, I'm not saying visually impaired isn't wrong. It's just that I'm not impaired. I find often would be better describing someone who has a sight problem so they can still see, but they have an impairment, where I am
Yeah.
actually totally blind.
Yeah.
I have no sight at all, never have had. So I prefer it that way so that it's not, they can't mistake it. But
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the same time, mm, I get less discrimination, a lot less, without my guide dog. Don't get me wrong, but that's not going to stop me, because the dog makes my life at certain
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
and certain places a lot easier. But yes, over the years, I think I've suffered more abuse and more intolerance with my dog than without. So when I'm traveling with a cane, it is easier in that I know for a fact I'm going to get a taxi. There's never going to be a problem. I know for a fact no one's going to say that person with a white stick can't sit next to me. Um, so that side of the coin is easier. You will get the odd nutcase, person who will shout the odd abuse, or if you trip someone up with a cane, you don't mean to. It's more usually because they're looking at the mobile phone that they trip over your cane. It happens too often. But even then, the intolerance and the discrimination has been more when I've had the dog. I've come across,
Yeah. Yeah.
so much more angry people, and just complete ignorance.
My uncle came to visit me at the weekend. And he had two unfortunate accidents, and he lost the sight in one eye, and then he can just about see shadows in his other eye.
Hmm.
And obviously that significantly changed his life, because he was an adult who had children and married and had full sight. And then to lose one eye, and then to have another accident that did it similar to what happened to the first one. And I look at him and he just gets on with it. And you think, how the hell do you do that? We do take our sight for granted, don't we?
Do
Most
Yeah,
people do.
very much. And this is why I said right at the beginning, for me, it sounds very odd for a lot of people, and I try and explain it only in that, for me, I'm glad that I lost my sight when I did, because I didn't have to relearn everything I'd learned through
Yeah,
my
yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
For someone who, once you get certainly to the age of 25, 30, to have to stop and start again from scratch. How do I pour a cup of tea? How do I pick up the cup that I can no longer see? How do I go in the bath and find the soap and not stand on it? Or something as
yeah,
daft,
yeah,
or something as daft as who picks up the guide dog poo? Well, who do you think? Me, because there's just me and my wife here, so we have to pick it up, but we find it and you cope. But it's having to relearn all those things that's so much more difficult for people later in life. All I can say is that I've met many, many, many people who, if given the time and the willingness, you can relearn. With touch and listening, you find ways, you find coping mechanisms, and there are people out there. There's most towns and cities have a blind society, for want of a better word, and they may have other names, such as like my site here in Nottingham. They'll have ways and tools and kitchen appliances, things like that you can find to help yourself. You just got to learn how. You've got to relearn, but it's having the willingness to do that. And sometimes people find it, far too hard. Take for example, the policeman who was shot in Newcastle in the Raoul Moat situation. The poor guy lost his sight, and he couldn't cope in the end because there was so much going on for him. I felt so sorry for him because he was chucked into the limelight, and he desperately tried to keep up with everything that was thrown him, but I think it became too much, and it is totally understandable.
yeah. And it must be overwhelming when it's that your life's changed so radically. We have Somerset sites in our area, and they're brilliant. I mean, we had a client in the rehab that was um, partially sighted, and they needed help, and we rang them, and they were absolutely out of this world, and sent things to help, sent things for us to educate ourselves, because you think you know, but you actually do not have a clue until
No.
you've been educated how to manage a situation like this. And it is your responsibility, I think, to educate yourself about how to manage, like not moving things. I mean, that was something that we learned, is if something's there, leave it there, because it's there for a reason, if you see what I'm saying. Putting
Yeah,
things in
very
the
much
right,
so.
yeah, and not moving furniture. That was another thing, because when this chap was with us, people wanted to move. And no, you cannot move furniture while this client is in our care. You cannot move the furniture. It has to stay where it is because he's familiarized himself with it. It's safe. He knows where everything is, and he's not going to fall over and hurt himself.
Yeah,
But they were brilliant.
unfortunately, it's getting to those centers of knowledge is the other problem, really. People
Yeah.
don't know where to turn unless it's signposted, and social services don't always signpost because they don't know. But luckily, we've got the internet now, so I'd always say go on good old Google, have a look around. And put in the search words you're looking for, and usually you will find something. Obviously, that's harder for older people, but there is help out there, and there's a lot of help out there. It's just you've got to get to it, and sometimes you'll have to maybe dig a little bit deeper, or try and find have a listen to a podcast or something like these, like yourselves, to find people like me who can tell you where to go
Yeah.
and how to find out.
Absolutely. So I'm just aware we've been at it for 3/4 of an hour, and I know how
Okay.
tiring it is for everybody. So what's your, on a reflection, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of being independent. Basically, both myself and my wife are totally blind. We both work. Mel works for guide dogs. I'm self-employed. We both lead very, very normal lives, just with adaptions. We have our own house. We own it. We don't owe anybody anything apart from gratitude for helping us get to where we are. And I can only thank both of our families for that, because they've both, in their own way, they've been very different, but they've helped us get to where we are, become independent adults, living our own lives our own way. The guide dogs that we have also helped us do that, in keeping those going when like my wife, she had a little bit of sight, but she lost all of it now. But the guide dog helps her do the same things every day she always wants to do: to go to the gym, get around, go for food, go shopping. We do all of that, and we do it independently. And that's what I'm most proud of, that we've been able to do that, because it's so hard for many, many people. All I can say is be strong. Don't take no for an answer. And if someone puts a barrier in the way of you, find a way around it.
Thank you. I think that's
I'm in awe, to be
yeah,
honest. I
so am
think,
I.
yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you are an amazing man, and I'm really, really grateful that you came on, and thank you for contacting us. And it was when I got the email that says, and I'm thinking, why does he want to come on our podcast? And I'm so grateful for you coming on. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and just to to get this kind of info and to the kind of my lifestyle out there, and hopefully other people that have impairments, doesn't matter what it is, they'll hear this and say, maybe I can do that. And if they try, at least they're trying. If they fall trying, at least they've done it and had a good
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And that's the
Yeah.
whole point of our podcast, really, is to share people's lives and experiences, and share that with others who perhaps are going through challenges or struggles. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Would you come back on in a year's time?
Yeah, if you want to contact me, that'd be absolutely fantastic, because
Brilliant.
by then we'll have got through another tennis season. I've
Yeah.
been to Wimbledon again, and see what happens in
Fingers
the
crossed.
meantime.
Fingers crossed
Fingers
you'll
crossed.
win.
Let us know. I want to know, okay? You need to
Right.
let me know how you get on.
If I presume Lily has given you my email and stuff like that, if you want to get in touch, because I'd love to share the podcast with the people, and actually catch up on some of your other episodes.
Yeah,
That'd be
we
wonderful,
will.
because Mel wants to as well, because
Yeah.
we hadn't heard, because there's so many podcasts out there. I don't mean to be rude, but I hadn't heard of you because there's so many.
Of course.
No.
I'm trying to keep up with them all, but we listen to loads all the time on trains and stuff, you see.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
So yeah,
I'll get your email off Lily, because I haven't got your direct email, but I'll get it
no,
off Lily and I'll send you
well,
all the info.
that's fine. Yeah, you got permission, so that's fine. Get in touch with me
Thank you.
whenever you can. That'd be wonderful for
Thank
you
you.
both.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
very,
you so
very
much. Have a
much.
good rest
You
of the
take
day.
care. Enjoy your
Thank
day.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.